Your son is dying. We need $180,000 for the surgery. Dr. Mason's words dropped like lead into the sterile air, flattening everything inside me. The fluorescent lights hummed above his head, shadows cutting across his face like knives. My throat closed up, but I forced the question out anyway. How long without it? 6 weeks at most. His heart's deteriorating fast. Mason adjusted his glasses again, that nervous tick I'd seen a dozen times over the past few weeks. My name is Jack Whitaker. I'm 38, a construction foreman in Newark, New Jersey. I've built malls, office towers, and schools with my hands. But I couldn't build a way to keep my 11-year-old boy, Caleb, alive. Caleb, with the crooked smile and pockets always rattling with the coins he collected. Caleb, who could tell you every Yankee stat since 2010, but was now lying 3 floors up, a heart monitor beeping to remind me he was still here, for now. The specialist we needed was Dr. Chun at Columbia Presbyterian, one of only 3 surgeons in the country who could perform the procedure. Insurance had labeled it experimental, though it wasn't. Appeals took months. My son didn't have months. I called the one person who should have cared as much as I did. Jack, I'm in Pilates. What is it? Laura's voice floated down the line, brittle but polished. She'd perfected that cheerfulness ever since marrying Parker Garrison and moving into his Connecticut mansion. It's Caleb, I said, my voice cracking. The doctors say he needs surgery or he's going to die. We need $180,000. Silence. I could hear her instructor counting in the background. Jack, you always did exaggerate. I'm standing here with his doctor. This is real. Our son is dying. Her voice turned sharp, cutting. You fought for custody, remember? You wanted to be the hero. Now be one. Parker and I have expenses, the twins' private school, the summer house mortgage. I can't just pull that money out of thin air. You mean you won't? Caleb is your problem now. And then the line went dead. Dr. Mason stared at his clipboard, pretending to read, giving me space for my humiliation. That night, I called everyone I could think of. My mother sobbed, whispering, if I had it, I'd sell my soul. Let me talk to Pastor Reed. Maybe the church can help. The church scraped together $1,800. My brother, Matt, called from a truck stop outside Denver. I'm behind on my mortgage, man. Kelly's pregnant again. I can send you $400. My uncle Frank, flush from real estate investments, sighed into the phone. Money's tied up. Maybe $10,000 in a few months. Caleb doesn't have months. I stood outside grocery stores with a poster board sign and Caleb's school photo blown up at Staples. Please help save my son. People streamed past, eyes averted. A woman dropped $1 into my cup. A teenager snapped a selfie with me blurred in the background, probably captioned American Desperation on Instagram. The hospital billing department never broke character. Mr. Whitaker, we require half the amount up front before we can schedule the procedure. Policy is policy. I made a crowdfunding page I hated myself for. Help Caleb live. Dying 11-year-old needs heart surgery. In 2 weeks, we raised $3,247, mostly from my coworkers and a couple poker buddies. And then came Vernon. He was the janitor everyone ignored, the man with the mop bucket who glided through the hallways invisible. One night he found me in the hospital chapel, my head pressed against folded hands, not even sure if I still believed in prayer. He sat beside me without a word, the smell of cleaning solution clinging to his clothes. After a long silence, he said 4 words that didn't make sense until later. Loss teaches us giving. He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $180,000. His life savings, he explained in halting words. Money meant for his wife, gone 2 years now, and the daughter they'd lost before she turned 12. She would have wanted me to do this, he said, his eyes glassy. Don't waste time wondering why. Just save your boy. That was the moment I stopped questioning miracles. Life wasn't supposed to unravel this way. After the divorce, I'd clawed my way into a rhythm as a single dad. Caleb and I built a small world together in our cramped apartment above the Colombian Bakery on Riverside Drive. The place always smelled of fresh bread and coffee. Saturday mornings we hit Mel's Diner, his chocolate chip pancakes with extra whipped cream, my burnt bacon, our ongoing debate about the Yankees' pitching rotation. Sunday afternoons we'd spread his coins across the kitchen table. This one's from 1943, he'd tell me proudly. They made it out of steel 'cause copper was for the war. Laura missed more and more of her weekends. The twins need stability, she told me once. Caleb had been 7 when she left. The twins were 7 now. Somehow, that was different. Mom doesn't want me anymore, does she? Caleb asked after her 4th cancellation. She loves you. She's just busy. You don't have to lie, Dad. I'm 11, not stupid. I didn't know how much longer I'd get to hear him say things like that. The day he collapsed at practice, everything stopped. I'd gotten the call, sped through red lights, and burst into the ear just in time to see him on a gurney, Yankees cap clutched in his limp hand. That was when Dr. Mason told me about the rare heart condition eating my son alive. That was when the clock started. And that was when a janitor named Vernon Oakes stepped forward, proving that the smallest lives sometimes carry the largest miracles. Dr. Mason leaned back in his chair, his expression carefully neutral, like he'd practiced this speech too many times. There's the matter of payment, he said. The hospital requires proof of funds or insurance authorization before we can book the operating room. I have insurance, I said quickly. Through my union. I already spoke with them. He folded his hands. They classify this procedure as experimental. They won't cover it. How much? $180,000. The number didn't just hang in the air. It slammed between us like a wall I couldn't climb. I earned steady money as a construction foreman. Steady meant rent was paid, the fridge had food, and maybe a few hundred went into savings every month. If nothing broke down, if nobody got sick. Something had broken down. Something I couldn't fix with a hammer and a pair of calloused hands. Outside, in the hospital parking lot, I paced between rows of cars with my phone pressed to my ear. The cold night air felt like knives in my lungs. Laura answered on the 4th ring, muffled voices and faint classical music echoing behind her. Jack, I'm hosting Parker's business partners for dinner. Can this wait? Caleb's dying. I said, too sharp, too raw. He needs surgery that costs $180,000. Or he has 6 weeks, maybe less. I heard her footsteps, the music fading as she stepped into another room. You're exaggerating. I'm standing outside Newark General with his test results in my hand. I snapped. His heart is failing. Laura, he's our son. Her sigh cut through me. Jack, Parker, and I have obligations. The twins' private school alone is $30,000 a year each. We just bought the house in Martha's Vineyard. These aren't liquid assets. Sell something. Borrow against something. I don't care how you do it. It's not that simple. Parker's money is tied up in investments and trust funds for the twins' future. What about Caleb's future? Her voice turned sharp, the same tone she'd used in the courtroom years ago. You wanted custody. You fought for it. You said I was unfit. Well, congratulations, Jack. He's your responsibility now. This isn't about custody. This is about saving his life. I can't help you. I'm sorry, but I can't. The line went dead. I lowered the phone slowly, watching a woman across the lot push her laughing child in a wheelchair toward their car. Probably something minor. Probably going home. My kid wasn't going home. I called my mother next. She muted Jeopardy. As soon as she heard my voice break. When I explained everything, she started crying. Baby, I've got maybe $3,000 in savings. It's yours. All of it. I'll call Pastor Reed. The congregation will help. 2 weeks of collections brought in $1,800 more. My brother Matt picked up from somewhere near Denver. His voice was rough, tired. Jesus, Jack. Kids don't just get heart conditions. Apparently, they do. I'm behind on everything. Kelly's pregnant again. Twins, this time. I can send maybe $400. I called Uncle Frank last, the family success story. Real estate mogul. Properties in 3 states. Jack, real estate doesn't work like that, he said after listening quietly. Everything's leveraged. Partnerships, mortgages. To free up that kind of cash would take months. He doesn't have months. A pause, then a sigh. Maybe $10,000. I can get that to you in a few weeks. That night, I sat at the kitchen table staring at my laptop until the screen blurred. I typed and retyped the words until my hands shook. Help save Caleb. Dying 11-year-old needs heart surgery. 2 weeks later, the total sat at $3,247. Most of it came from my crew on the construction site and the regulars at Murphy's Bar. I stood outside grocery stores with a cardboard sign, people pretending not to see me. A man muttered, "Get a job," as he walked by. A teenager snapped my picture, laughing, probably for social media. 6 hours of humiliation bought me $43 in loose bills and pocket change. The billing coordinator delivered the final blow with a smile that felt rehearsed. Mr. Whitaker, We need half the amount up front before we can schedule. 3 weeks had passed since the diagnosis. Caleb was fading before my eyes. His skin had gone gray, his eyes ringed with bruised shadows. He'd dropped 12 pounds from a frame that couldn't spare any. One night, as I sat by his bed with the Yankees game flickering in the background, he turned to me. "Dad, am I going to die?" My throat locked. "No, buddy. Dad's going to figure this out. Mom hasn't visited. She's busy sport. She doesn't care about me anymore, does she?" The words burned. I wanted to shield him with a lie, but he deserved the truth, or at least part of it. "I don't know what's going on in her head, Caleb, but I care. Grandma cares. Uncle Matt calls every day asking about you. That's not the same as having a mom who shows up." He was right, and we both knew it. I held his cold, bony hand as the heart monitor ticked away the seconds we didn't have. That night, I wandered the hospital halls until I found the chapel. It was past 2 a.m., empty except for 6 rows of pews and a plain wooden cross. I hadn't prayed since I was 12, since the day my grandfather died and God ignored me. But desperation has a way of bending knees. I dropped to the carpet. My hands shook as I clasped them. "Please," I whispered. "Not my boy. Take me instead. Take every year I have left and give them to him. Please." The door creaked. I braced for a nurse or a priest. Instead, Vernon Oakes shuffled in with his mop bucket, wheels squeaking against the tile. I'd seen him night after night, pushing that bucket like it was part of him. Gray hair, thick glasses, uniform with his name stitched on the pocket. "Mind if I sit?" he asked, voice gravelly but kind. I shrugged. Words were heavy, useless. He lowered himself onto the pew, joints protesting. We sat in silence until he finally spoke, eyes fixed on the cross. Couldn't help but notice. "You're here every night. Same time. Same pew." "Can't sleep," I said. "My son's upstairs dying." "I know. Heard the nurses. Caleb, right? Boy who asks for Yankee scores." I nodded, surprised. "Good kid. Always thanks me when I empty his trash." "Not many do." We sat a moment longer before he rubbed his worn hands together. "Lost my boy too. Timothy. Leukemia. 23 years ago. I'm sorry. Worst part wasn't losing him. Worst part was having the money, but not soon enough. By the time I could pay for the new therapy, it was too late. Doctors said even 6 weeks earlier might have saved him." "What about your wife?" "She followed him 6 months later. Heart attack, they called it." "I know better. Broken heart." His jaw tightened when I told him about Laura. "Some people don't deserve the gifts they're given," he muttered. "I've tried everything. Family, church, strangers. Set up a fundraiser. 8,000 total. I might as well need $1 million. Vernon stood slowly, pulled a checkbook from his pocket. It was worn but expensive looking, out of place in his hands. "How much you say?" "180,000. "What?" He didn't answer, just bent over the checkbook, writing carefully. When he tore it free and held it out, my chest locked up. The amount was there. $180,000. Signed in neat cursive, Vernon Oakes. "This some kind of sick joke?" I whispered. "No joke, son. You mop floors. You empty trash." "That's right. How could you possibly?" He pulled out an old newspaper clipping, folded and yellowed. He handed it to me like it was something sacred. The headline read, "Local inventor sells medical device patent for $4.2 million." The picture showed a younger Vernon shaking hands with men in suits. "That's you," I breathed. "Different lifetime. But yes." "Then why are you working here?" "Because money couldn't save my boy. Patent sale went through 3 weeks after his funeral. For $1 million in my hands, and nothing left to spend it on. Gave most of it away, to hospitals, research, families in need. Kept enough to live. Took this job because I needed to be useful. Needed to be around families still fighting. Maybe I couldn't save Timothy, but maybe I could help someone else. Vernon, I can't take this." "You can. You will. I'll pay you back every penny." "I don't want it back. Money's just paper. My boy is gone. Yours doesn't have to be." I stared at the check until my vision blurred. For the first time in weeks, the wall of numbers didn't look impossible. It looked like hope. "Then why?" I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of disbelief. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Vernon looked at me, really looked, and I saw 23 years of grief etched into the lines of his face. But it wasn't just sorrow. It had hardened into something else, something steady and resolute. "Because 23 years ago, I sat in this same chapel," he said quietly. "In that exact spot where you were kneeling. I begged for a miracle that never came. And now I see your ex-wife walking away from that boy, and it feels like the same world that walked away from my Timothy. Everybody had reasons back then, too. The insurance company, the hospital, the specialist who refused to lift a finger without upfront payment. Excuses, excuses, excuses. He stopped, took a breath, and his hands trembled as he folded the checkbook closed. For over 2 decades, I've asked myself why I survived when my boy didn't. Why I had wealth dropped in my lap when it was too late to matter. And maybe this is why. Maybe I've been mopping these halls for 15 years just to be here tonight. For you, for Caleb. I swallowed hard. Vernon, I don't know what to say. There's more, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. 3 nights ago, I had a dream. First time Timothy came to me in 5 years. He was standing right there. He pointed toward the small wooden altar at the front of the chapel. He was wearing his Little League uniform, the one we buried him in. He looked at me, pointed to this pew, and said, "Dad, he'll be there Tuesday night. Help him. Do for him what you couldn't do for me." My brain wanted to dismiss it as grief dressed up as revelation, but sitting there with the check in my shaking hands, rational thought seemed like the least important thing in the world. Then Tuesday night, there you were, Vernon said softly. Same spot Timothy showed me. Your boy upstairs, dying of a heart condition, just like mine. Needing money for treatment, just like mine. That's not coincidence. That's purpose. I lowered my eyes to the check again, my vision blurring. You said Timothy once told you 4 words that broke you. What were they? Vernon rose slowly, pausing by his mop bucket, his eyes holding galaxies of sorrow and meaning. Timothy sent me here. The words didn't just echo. They filled the chapel like a presence, like something sacred and undeniable. Within 48 hours, the surgery was scheduled. At 8 sharp, I handed the check to the billing coordinator. Her practiced composure cracked as her eyes widened at the amount. She called Dr. Mason down herself. "Mr. Whitaker, how in the world did you pull this off?" Mason asked, still stunned. I met his eyes and said the only thing that made sense. A miracle. The morning of the operation, Vernon was pushing his mop down the hallway outside the operating room. He stopped as Caleb was wheeled past, pale but clutching his Yankees cap tight in his small hands. "You'll be fine, young man," Vernon said gently. "I can feel it in these old bones." Caleb looked at him, eyes curious. "Are you the janitor my dad told me about? The one who helped us?" "I just clean floors, son," Vernon replied, voice soft. "Your dad's the hero here." Caleb thought for a moment, then held out his Yankees cap. "Will you hold this for me? Dad says you're good luck." Vernon's hands trembled as he took it. "I'll guard it with my life." 8 hours later, Dr. Mason emerged with words I'd been praying to hear. Complete success. Caleb's going to make a full recovery. His heart function is already improving. That night, I found Vernon sitting quietly in the same pew where everything had changed. "How do I ever repay you?" I asked. "You don't repay me," he said. "You pay it forward. Someday, someone else will need what you needed." That's how Timothy's gift keeps moving. "Do you really believe Timothy sent you to me?" I asked. Vernon was silent for a long moment. "I believe love doesn't end when life does. I believe my boy knew I needed purpose as much as your boy needed that surgery. Whether it's heaven or just an old man's way of making sense of loss, does it matter? Caleb lives. That's all that matters." Laura finally showed up a week later, walking into Caleb's hospital room in a designer dress, her sunglasses still on indoors. "Jack, I heard what happened. Some janitor paid for everything? That's insane." "His name is Vernon," I said flatly. "And he saved the life of the son you abandoned." "I didn't abandon him. I just couldn't liquidate assets that quickly." Right then, Vernon rolled past with his mop bucket. He stopped, looking at her with a sadness that wasn't judgment but was heavier than any scolding. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "the boy doesn't need excuses. He needs people who show up when it counts, not when it's convenient." Her face flushed. "Who are you to tell me anything about my son? I'm the janitor who loves your boy more than you do, and that should break your heart." Laura stormed out without saying goodbye. Caleb didn't ask for her again. Today, Caleb is 16. Strong. Healthy. He pitches for his varsity baseball team, his heart pumping steady and fierce. And every game, Vernon is in the stands, still wearing his janitor uniform because he comes straight from work. Every Saturday, Caleb volunteers at the hospital. He carries coffee, sandwiches, and quiet comfort to families waiting in the cardiac unit. Someone helped us, he tells them. You're not alone. Vernon is still there, too, pushing that mop bucket through endless halls. I've seen him slip checks to desperate parents when he thinks nobody's watching. The night nurse once told me he's done it a dozen times in just the last few years. Can't help everyone, Vernon admitted when I caught him leaving an envelope for a crying mother. But Timothy keeps sending me the ones I can. Last month, Caleb got his first job at a sporting goods store. When his paycheck came, he set half of it aside. For someone else's miracle fund, Dad, he said. Like Vernon taught us. The check Vernon wrote us hangs framed in our living room. Not as a monument to money, but as a reminder of grace. In the memo line, he had written, for Timothy's friend he never got to meet. Some people leave an inheritance in their will. Vernon gave us something far more lasting. He showed us that miracles wear janitor uniforms, that angels sometimes push mop buckets, and that love can reach through dreams and decades of grief to save a stranger's child. And sometimes, when I'm stuck in traffic or weighed down by life, I think about Vernon, still mopping those floors, still waiting for the next desperate parent to walk into that chapel. Whether Timothy really sends them or Vernon just needs to believe it, what matters is the same. The broken heart of a janitor saved my son's failing heart. And that's the kind of miracle that makes me believe in something bigger than all of us.